NASA photographs this city from space. From up there, it looks enormous. A perfect grid of streets stretching across the desert, mile after mile after mile, bigger inland than San Diego. Every street has a name. Every block is neatly drawn. There is just one thing missing from almost all of them: houses. This is California City, and it is not in some faraway country. It sits about 2 hours from Los Angeles in the United States of America. On paper, it is the third largest city in California. In reality, fewer than 15,000 people live there, huddled in one small corner, surrounded by hundreds of miles of roads that lead absolutely nowhere. And here is the truly strange part. California City is not even in the top 5 emptiest megacities on Earth. Around the world, governments and billionaires have spent over $500 billion building brand new cities with towers, malls, highways, and stadiums that stand almost completely silent today. One of them was designed for 2 million residents. It holds fewer than a small town. In the next few minutes, I will take you inside 5 of them, each one bigger and more expensive than the last, ending with the most expensive city project in human history, one that may never be finished at all. If that sounds like your kind of story, subscribe before we dive in, because this channel hunts down exactly these kinds of stories every week. First, how does America end up with a giant uninhabited city 2 hours from Los Angeles? The answer is one man with a giant dream. In 1958, a real estate developer named Nat Mendelsohn bought 82,000 acres of Mojave Desert. His plan was breathtaking. He would build a rival to Los Angeles itself, a master-designed metropolis for hundreds of thousands of people, with a downtown, suburbs, parks, and a lake. Bulldozers carved the entire street network into the desert. Hundreds of miles of roads, cul-de-sacs, boulevards, intersections, all named before a single family arrived. And the sales worked. Mendelsohn sold more than 30,000 plots of land, collecting over $100 million from buyers dreaming of a home in the city of tomorrow. But the buyers were purchasing an idea, not a life. There were no jobs waiting in the desert, no industry, just heat, wind, and dust. Most owners never built anything, never moved, and in many cases, never even visited their land. The city of tomorrow simply never showed up. Today, eroded street signs still stand at deserted intersections, faithfully naming roads that no one has ever lived on. $100 million buys a lot of heartbreak. But when entire governments make the same mistake, the numbers start sounding like a different language. Which is how we end up in Africa, staring at a city that looks like it was built from a child's box of colored blocks. 20 kilometers outside Luanda, the capital of Angola, stand 750 apartment buildings, painted in bright oranges, blues, and yellows, lined up in perfect rows across the savannah. A dozen schools, more than 100 shops. This is Kilamba, built by a Chinese state construction giant in under 3 years, at a cost of $3.5 billion, with space for up to 500,000 people. When journalists visited after it opened, they found something eerie: fresh lawns being watered, clean streets, and almost no human beings. At one point, barely 200 of the first 2,800 apartments had sold. The reason was painfully simple. The flats cost more than $100,000 in a country where most people survived on a couple of dollars a day. Angola had built a city its own citizens could not afford to enter. The footage went around the world. Africa's ghost city. A monument to waste. Case closed. Except the story did not end there, and what happened next matters for every city in this video. The government slashed prices, some by nearly half, and rolled out long-term, low-cost mortgages. Families queued for days to buy apartments. Within a few years, tens of thousands of residents had moved in, schools filled with children, and the ghost city quietly became a living town. So money and mortgages can wake a sleeping city. Hold that thought, because our next city had all the money in the world, plus something no city had ever had before. a brain. On the coast of South Korea, engineers pumped landfill into the Yellow Sea until brand new ground rose from the water. And on that ground, they built Songdo, billed as the world's first smart city with a price tag over $40 billion. Sensors watch the traffic. Screens connect apartments to schools and offices. And beneath the streets runs its strangest marvel. There are almost no garbage trucks in Songdo because household waste is sucked directly from kitchens through underground pneumatic tubes, whisked away before it ever touches a sidewalk. They built their own version of New York's Central Park, surrounded by glass towers. Everything works exactly as designed. And that is the problem. Visitors describe walking through neighborhoods where every light glows, every sensor blinks, and almost nobody is around. One resident compared it to living on a movie set after the cameras stopped rolling. Beautiful, functional, and somehow hollow. Growth came slower than planned. Businesses hesitated, and the population hovered around 100,000, a fraction of the surrounding region. Songdo proved something uncomfortable. A city that works perfectly and a city that feels alive are not the same thing. Koreans had jobs, wealth, and world-class technology, and still the city struggled to fill, which raises a question with a $100 billion answer. If decades of planning and $40 billion cannot guarantee life, what happens when a country bets everything on a single city that dwarfs them all? In 2005, Saudi Arabia announced a project of staggering ambition on the Red Sea coast, King Abdullah Economic City. $100 billion, an area comparable to Washington, D.C., a giant deep-water port, an industrial valley, beach resorts, and universities. The port was built and it works. The roads were paved, wide and smooth. Hotels rose along the beach. And then the city waited for the people who were supposed to fill it. A decade in, the population was around 7,000. Even years later, reports put it below 10,000. Malls with more staff than shoppers. Boulevards with more lanes than cars. A $100 billion city holding fewer residents than a single apartment complex in Tokyo. Nobody canceled it, because you cannot exactly return a city. Instead, Saudi Arabia has been reinventing it, declaring it a special economic zone and betting on factories and car makers to succeed where residential dreams did not. But while that rescue plan quietly unfolded, the same kingdom announced something that made every project in this video look small. They called it The Line, a single structure, 500 meters tall, taller than the Empire State Building, only 200 meters wide, stretching 170 kilometers in a perfectly straight line across the desert. A mirrored wall of a city for 9 million people, with no cars, no streets, and no carbon emissions. Part of a mega region priced at $500 billion. The promotional videos looked like science fiction. That was the point. Then the engineering met the desert. Building a mirrored canyon taller than almost any skyscraper across mountains and sand for 170 kilometers turned out to be exactly as hard as it sounds. Reports confirmed that the near-term plan had shrunk from 170 kilometers to just 2.4, roughly 1% of the original vision. Then, in September 2025, came the quiet announcement. Construction on the line was suspended. The workforce was cut by roughly a third. The project's chief executive departed. And then, a leaked internal audit reportedly projected a number so large it barely sounds real. Finishing the original vision could cost up to $8.8 trillion, with a completion date stretching to around 2080. $8.8 trillion. More than the yearly economic output of Germany and the United Kingdom combined, poured into a single line in the sand. Today, what exists of the boldest city plan in human history is a strip of foundations in the desert, waiting to find out if it has a future. To be fair, Saudi officials say there is no shame in adjusting, and pieces of the wider project, ports, energy plants, a luxury island, are genuinely being delivered. but the mirrored city of 9 million remains what it has always been so far. A render on a screen. So we are left with a planet dotted with silent monuments, a street grid in the Mojave with no houses, rainbow towers in Angola, a robot city in Korea, a new Dubai with no crowds, and a $1 trillion line drawn in sand. All built on the same belief that if you pour enough concrete, life will follow. But here is the twist hiding inside this entire video. Sometimes it does. Kilamba was mocked as a ghost city until cheaper prices filled it with families. And if you saw our video on useless megaprojects, you know China's Ordos was the most famous ghost city on Earth, until schools and government offices slowly brought over 100,000 people back from the dead. Hollow is not always forever. Sometimes a ghost city is just a city that arrived before its people did. That is the $1 trillion question buried under all of this. Not whether these places are deserted today, but which ones are truly dead, and which ones are simply early. Somewhere right now, a government is drawing plans for the next brand new city, betting that this time the people will come, because the prize for guessing right is a Shenzhen, and the price for guessing wrong is the most beautiful silence money can buy. So now I want your verdict. Of all the cities in this video, which one do you believe will actually be full of life in 20 years? And which one will still be sitting silent in the sun? And tell me this too. If your government offered you a cheap apartment in a brand new city with no people, would you take it? Drop your answers in the comments, because your answers might shape which city I investigate next.